An NHL goalie once made 3 assists in a single game, basically becoming a fourth forward while never leaving his crease. That actually happened, and somehow that's only like the 10th weirdest thing we're covering today. The NHL has been collecting bizarre statistics since 1917, and some of these records are so insane that they sound completely made up until you see the actual footage. While everyone knows Wayne Gretzky has more assists than anyone else has total points, did you know a goalie once won a game for the other team while working for them as a Zamboni driver? Or that someone scored 5 goals in 5 completely different ways in the same game? We're counting down the strangest NHL records that actually exist, and trust me, by the end of this, you're going to question everything you thought you knew about hockey. Starting at number 26, we have the single worst team season in NHL history. The 1974-75 Washington Capitals went 8, 67, and 5 for a total of 21 points and a points percentage of just .131. They allowed 446 goals that season, which is still an all-time record for futility. But here's the truly insane part. They won exactly 1 road game the entire year. Their road record was 1-39. The context makes it even crazier because this was during the turbo expansion era when the WHA was stealing talent, and Washington's roster was basically held together with tape and hope. Modern NHL parity and the loser point have made it basically impossible for any team to be this historically bad ever again. Number 25 brings us to the emergency backup goalie who beat his own employer. On February 22, 2020, David Ayres, a 42-year-old Zamboni driver and building operations guy for the Maple Leafs, had to suit up as the emergency backup for the Carolina Hurricanes after both their goalies got injured. He made 8 saves and won the game 6-3 in Toronto, becoming the first emergency backup to ever win an NHL game and the oldest goalie to win his NHL debut. The post-game headlines wrote themselves, "The Zamboni driver beat the Leafs on their own ice." Emergency backups exist as living insurance policies. They are not supposed to actually play, let alone win. Ayres went from fixing the ice to stopping pucks on it in the same building. For number 24, we need to talk about penalty minutes, and nobody accumulated them quite like Dave Schultz. In the 1974-75 season, Schultz racked up 472 penalty minutes. That's not just an enforcer having a busy year. That's basically choosing violence as a lifestyle. To put that in perspective, most tough guys today barely crack 100 penalty minutes in a season. Schultz averaged almost 6 penalty minutes per game for an entire 76-game season. The sport has changed so much that this record looks like it's from a different universe compared to today's game. Number 23 is about endurance that shouldn't be possible. On August 11, 2020, during that insane 5-overtime game between Columbus and Tampa Bay, defenseman Seth Jones logged 65 minutes and 6 seconds of ice time. That's over an hour of actual skating, pivoting, battling, and making decisions while your legs are screaming at you to stop. Since the league started tracking time on ice in 1997, nobody has played more in a single game. Normal shifts last 45 seconds for a reason, because after that, your effectiveness drops off a cliff. Jones played the equivalent of more than an entire regular game plus overtime, and he still had to make smart defensive reads in the 5th overtime period. Coming in at 22, we have the fastest a team has ever collapsed in the playoffs. The Toronto Maple Leafs scored 3 goals in 23 seconds during a playoff game, which is the fastest 3 goals by one team in postseason history. Think about that. In less time than it takes to microwave popcorn, Toronto went from potentially trailing to absolutely dominating. Playoff goals usually come after grinding battles and video reviews. 3 in 23 seconds is the kind of momentum swing that makes opposing coaches consider early retirement. Number 21 showcases defensive scoring at its absolute peak. Tom Blayden of the Philadelphia Flyers put up 8 points in a single game on December 11, 1977. He scored 4 goals and 4 assists as a defenseman in an 11-1 destruction of the Cleveland Barons. The tape from this game is surreal because Blayden keeps jumping into the play like a fourth forward, hitting pucks in stride and creating plays from positions defensemen aren't supposed to be in. Modern systems would never allow a defenseman this much offensive freedom, which makes this record basically untouchable. At number 20, speaking of defensemen doing things they shouldn't, Ian Turnbull scored 5 goals in a single game on February 2, 1977. But here's the kicker. He did it on just 5 shots. Perfect shooting, 5 for 5, as a defenseman. This remains the most goals a defenseman has ever scored in one NHL game. Today's blue liners activate constantly into the offense, but defensive systems are specifically designed to punish that exact behavior, making 5 goals from the blue line feel impossible. Number 19 belongs to the journeyman king, Mike Sillinger. This guy played for 12 different NHL teams and was traded 9 times, both NHL records. His career was basically a permanent road trip around the league. But here's the thing, teams kept trading for him because he was actually useful. He could win faceoffs, provide depth scoring, and slot anywhere in the lineup without complaining. Most players who get traded that much have short careers. Sillinger stuck around for 17 seasons because his skill set was universally valuable. For number 18, we're going back to that Columbus-Tampa marathon. Joonas Korpisalo made 85 saves in that 5-overtime playoff game, the most ever in a Stanley Cup playoff game since modern tracking began. Fatigue usually destroys a goalie's technique in long overtime games. Small movements get sloppy, angles get lazy. But Korpisalo's edges and reads held together hour after hour after hour. By the end, he'd faced more rubber than most goalies see in 3 games combined. Number 17 is about doing a lot with very little. The fastest natural hat trick ever belongs to Bill Mosienko of the Chicago Blackhawks. On March 23, 1952, he scored 3 goals in 21 seconds against the New York Rangers. Not empty netters, not lucky bounces, just 3 legitimate goals in the time it takes to tie your skates. His line mate Gus Bodnar assisted on 2 of them, and the whole sequence happened so fast that the Rangers probably didn't even realize what was happening until it was over. Hockey goals are rare events compared to basketball buckets. 3 in 21 seconds is basically the sports version of lightning striking the same spot 3 times. At number 16, we have the record nobody wants. Randy Holt collected 67 penalty minutes in a single game on March 11, 1979. He basically ordered everything off the penalty menu. Minors, majors, misconducts, the whole buffet. 67 minutes means he spent more time in the box than most players spend on the ice in a game. The refs must have gotten tired just raising their arms to call penalties on this guy. Number 15 brings us to the goalie who basically played 2 games in one night. On March 21, 1991, Ron Tugnutt stopped 70 of 73 shots for the Quebec Nordiques in a 3-3 tie against Boston. The Bruins threw 73 shots on goal and somehow only managed to tie. That's the most saves in a regular season game since shots have been reliably tracked. Usually when a team gets shelled this badly, the goalie gets pulled by the second period. Tugnutt didn't just survive, he stole a point for his team. For number 14, let's talk about assists in a way that breaks your brain. Billy Taylor Sr. and Wayne Gretzky share the record for most assists in a single game with 7. But Gretzky did it 3 separate times because of course he did. 7 assists means you personally started 7 different scoring plays that ended with goals. Your teammates have to finish, the timing has to be perfect, and everything has to click. Getting 7 in one night means your entire line basically achieved hockey nirvana. Number 13 is the unicorn stat line that shouldn't be possible. On New Year's Eve 1988, Mario Lemieux scored 5 goals, but here's what makes it legendary. He scored them 5 different ways. Even strength, power play, shorthanded, penalty shot, and empty net, all in the same game. It's the only time anyone has ever done this in NHL history. This requires not just skill, but an absurd amount of circumstantial luck. You need to draw a penalty shot, be on the ice for an empty net, kill penalties, and run the power play. It's like winning 5 different lotteries on the same day. At number 12, we have the ultimate clutch performer. Justin Williams earned the nickname Mr. Game 7 by scoring 8 goals and 15 points in Game 7s throughout his career, both NHL records. His teams went 8-1 in those elimination games. This wasn't luck or coincidence. Williams had a supernatural ability to find the right spot at the right time when everything was on the line. Some players shrink in big moments. Williams expanded. Number 11 showcases team chaos at its finest. The Philadelphia Flyers and Ottawa Senators combined for 419 penalty minutes in a single game on March 5, 2004. Most of this came in an absolutely insane third period, where line after line got thrown into brawls. 419 minutes is 7 hours of penalties. The refs probably needed ice baths for their arms after this one. For number 10, we're talking about streaks that defy probability. Brian Boucher posted 5 consecutive shutouts and 332 minutes and 1 second of scoreless hockey for the Phoenix Coyotes from December 31st, 2003 to January 11th, 2004. That's the modern-era record for consecutive shutout minutes. Think about all the weird bounces, deflections, and scrambles that happen in 5 games. Somebody always finds a way to score on a fluke play. For 5 straight games, nobody did against Boucher. Number 9 belongs to the playoff MVP who lost. Connor McDavid just became the 6th player ever to win the Conn Smythe Trophy despite losing in the Stanley Cup Final, joining a list that includes John Sebastian Giguère, Ron Hextall, and Reggie Leach. The Conn Smythe almost always goes to someone on the winning team. Being so undeniably dominant that you break that tradition means you were operating on a completely different level from everyone else on the ice. At number 8, we have to mention what just happened this year. On April 6, 2025, Alex Ovechkin scored his 895th career goal to pass Wayne Gretzky and become the NHL's all-time leading goal scorer. He did it with a classic Ovechkin shot from his office in the left circle on the power play. For decades, everyone said Gretzky's record would never fall. It was considered the safest record in sports. Ovechkin spent 20 years proving that in hockey, unbreakable is just another word for challenge accepted. Number 7 is about brothers having the night of their lives. On February 22, 1981, Peter and Anton Stastny each scored 8 points for the Quebec Nordiques in an 11-7 win over Washington. That's 16 combined points from 2 rookie brothers in a single game, both NHL records. These guys had just come over from Czechoslovakia and immediately started tearing up the league like they'd been playing in North America their whole lives. When you've been setting up your brother since you learned to skate, the chemistry translates instantly. For number 6, let's talk about the longest game in NHL history. On March 24, 1936, Mud Bruneteau ended 6 overtimes at 16 minutes and 30 seconds to give Detroit a 1-0 win over the Montreal Maroons. The game lasted 176 minutes and 30 seconds of actual playing time. The winning goal went in at 2:25 a.m. Eastern Time. Players from that era described the ice as complete slush and their legs as concrete. Remember, this was with 1930s equipment that was heavy when dry and absolutely brutal when soaked with sweat. They basically played 3 full games in one night. Number 5 brings us to a record within a record. Remember Ron Tugnut's 70-save game? Here's the flip side. The Boston Bruins fired 73 shots on goal that night and only got a tie. 73 shots is absolute domination, the kind of territorial advantage that should result in a blowout. But hockey's randomness is what makes it beautiful. You can outshoot a team by 50 and still not win if their goalie decides to become superhuman. At number 4, we have the single-period explosion. Brian Trottier of the New York Islanders scored 6 points in one period on December 23, 1978. 4 goals and 2 assists in 20 minutes of hockey. He finished the night with 8 points total in a rivalry destruction of the Rangers. 6 points in one period is the NHL record that still stands today. Scoring streaks usually flatten out because coaches adjust, goalies lock in, and luck regresses to the mean. Trottier didn't regress for 20 straight minutes. Number 3 is about specialized dominance. During the same 1974-75 season when Dave Schultz was setting the single-season penalty record, he was part of something even crazier. The Philadelphia Flyers of that era were called the Broad Street Bullies for a reason. They turned intimidation into a team strategy and won 2 Stanley Cups doing it. The league literally had to change rules because of how violent hockey had become. These records from the 1970s look alien compared to today because the sport has fundamentally transformed. For number 2, goalie scoring enters the chat. Ron Hextall was the first goalie to score a goal by actually shooting the puck in both the regular season and the playoffs. But the single-game goalie assist record belongs to Jeff Reese, who had 3 assists in one game for Calgary in 1993. A goalie getting a playmaker's hat trick is absurd. He was 60 feet from the nearest offensive opportunity, but still managed to influence the scoreboard like a 4th forward. Every clean outlet pass, every perfect rim around the boards turned into scoring chances. And number 1, the most physically punishing record in modern hockey. Chris Russell once blocked 15 shots in a single game for the Calgary Flames, the most since the NHL started tracking real-time stats in 2005. 15 blocked shots means voluntarily putting your body in front of frozen rubber flying at 90 miles per hour over and over again. It's a masterclass in eating pucks and instinctively sealing shooting lanes before they even exist. Most players try to avoid getting hit by pucks. Russell made it his job description for an entire night. These records aren't just random oddities. They're windows into how hockey has evolved and how its chaos creates moments that seem impossible until they happen. Some will never be broken due to rule changes, others because the sport has fundamentally shifted, but all of them remind us why hockey produces more. What just happened moments than any other sport. The beautiful chaos of NHL hockey means the next impossible record is probably happening somewhere right now.